not quite a champagne socialist. You're with Julian on the brown note and the truth about Keir Starmer's Labour victory in the UK elections, which people are calling a landslide. I put a piece online a year or so ago saying about how I wanted Labour to lose the election in the UK for very specific reasons. One is I thought the country was going to hell in a handbasket and push it over the edge. But mainly it was because I detest Keir Starmer, the Tory Blairite Keir Starmer, and the fact that there is this enormous push in the UK and in Australia too to say that the only time that Labour can win an election is when they're really like the right. And that's from the establishment down. That's from big money interests that know that there has to be Labour governments. So they want to control who we get. So you get Rupert Murdoch anointing Keir Starmer, you get Rupert Murdoch anointing Tony Blair, and Tony Blair, I believe, is godparent to one of Rupert Murdoch's children or grandchildren. So I said I didn't want to spend the next 20 years with people telling me that Jeremy Corbyn could never win an election and that Keir Starmer is the only way that we could win an election and that only people like Tony Blair, who are more Tory than they are Labour, can win elections. This has always been garbage. This isn't accidental, it's not down to the public, it is down to a relentless push against anyone that can represent meaningful change or even represent Labour values, which Keir Starmer clearly doesn't. So is it true? Did Keir Starmer win by a landslide? Let's have a look at these facts and figures. So we had the Brexit election, which cruelly Jeremy Corbyn was saddled with, despite making more gains in the previous election than Labour had made since the second Tony Blair election. Elections that anyone would have won because after 18 years of Tory rule, the public was sick of the Tories. So the first couple of elections that Tony Blair won, anyone would have won, but people like the Murdoch press engendered this notion that because he was friends with the Tories, that he was a centrist, he was the reason why. Bollocks, anyone would have won those elections. The third one, he lost 60 seats. And no Blairite in all of that time since 2001 has gone forward with the electorate. The last 4 years in the UK have been some of the most corrupt, incompetent, hated from the Tory party of any period in UK political history. We had Boris Johnson coming in on the wave of Brexit, which was a one policy election, and then what everyone said being the most corrupt idiot possible. And we had the whole COVID response and Partygate, and the party kicked him out. We had Liz Truss come in for 6 weeks, screw everything up even worse. We had Rishi Sunak come in, Roland Rat's brother apparently, and it was the most relentless chain of corruption and humiliation and idiocy, even up to the week of the election, with accusations of people placing bets on when the election was going to be called illegally based on insider information. So let's have a look. Did Keir Starmer win with a record landslide, really? Keir Starmer, even after all of those years of absolute terrible behaviour by the Tory party, won an election with the lowest voter turnout since universal suffrage was introduced in 1928. The lowest percentage of people voted in this election because people did not give a shit about Keir Starmer or his version of Labour, his punitive version of Labour that hasn't inspired the electorate anything like Jeremy Corbyn was. 52% of voters voted, the lowest turnout since 1928. The only comparable modern election was, guess who? Tony Blair in 2001, when only 57 turned out, and he lost over 60 seats, which was one of the lowest since World War I. So when they tell you these people win by landslides, they don't tell you the apathetic impact they have on the electorate, because the people do not love anything about Keir Starmer. They detest him. They just detested the Tories more. So let's have a look at their seats. Keir Starmer lost 17% in his own seat in the year he was elected. His voter turnout was 17% down in his own seat. So Jeremy Corbyn, this most maligned of modern politicians, who Keir Starmer's punitive modern Labour Party, which doesn't represent a single Labour value, kicked Jeremy Corbyn out of the Labour Party, forced him to stand as an independent. Now you look at the leader of the party that just won government, losing 17% in his own seat, and Jeremy Corbyn standing as an independent didn't lose 1%. He was re-elected despite not being inside the Labour shell of being in one of the two most popular parties in the country. He didn't lose any votes. No one voted for Keir Starmer. They voted because they were sick of the Tories, and they really didn't want to vote for Keir Starmer if they had a choice. It's one of the most crushing events in history that Jeremy Corbyn was dealt the hand of the Brexit election, which saw many, many Labour seats vote for Brexit over Jeremy Corbyn. They didn't even hate Jeremy Corbyn, they wanted Brexit done. It was an impossible win. If only history had let Keir Starmer have the Brexit election and not the free pass election, where people like The Guardian and commentators on the BBC will now spend the next 20 years telling you that only people like Tony Blair and not socialists like Jeremy Corbyn will ever win elections in the UK. This isn't accidental, it's by design, to make sure that nothing ever changes.